The grand ballroom of the prestigious Winslow Hotel was filled with the gentle buzz of conversation, the clink of champagne glasses, and the occasional sound of a grand piano in the corner. Dressed in glittering gala outfits and impeccably tailored suits, the city's elite had gathered for the annual charity ball, an event renowned for its glamour, opulence, and generous donations. Among the glittering crowd was Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore, a woman whose name was synonymous with old wealth and high society. Dressed in a gown glittering with countless sequins, she lounged near the champagne fountain, her diamond necklace reflecting the light with every movement. Eleanor was known for her sharp wit, but also for her even sharper tongue, which gave her a reputation for being intimidating, if not downright condescending. It was during one of her impromptu critiques of another guest's choice of shoes that Eleanor's attention was drawn to a boy moving through the crowd. He was no more than 12 years old. His suit was a little mismatched, and his hair, although well-styled, had clearly not been done up by an expensive salon. He was carrying a tray of appetizers, his posture rigid and his expression showing quiet determination. Eleanor's lips curved into a debauched smile as she called out to him.
"Boy, come here. Honestly, who let a child work at this event? Shouldn't you be at home, studying or playing with toy trains?"
The boy stopped in his tracks, his cheeks flushing with embarrassment. He hesitated for a moment before approaching, offering the tray without looking directly at her. He asked politely,
"Madam, would you like an aperitif?"
Eleanor waved her hand dismissively.
"No, I'd rather not, but really, who hired you? This is no place for children. You're more likely to knock something over in those expensive dresses than impress anyone."
Several nearby guests looked in his direction, their expressions ranging from mild discomfort to disapproval. The boy's hand squeezed the tray, but he didn't say anything, just nodded and walked away. Joshua Carter wasn't just any child. He was 12, but his maturity went far beyond his years. Since losing his father in a car accident 3 years ago, he and his mother, Melissa, had faced countless challenges. After the tragedy, the family lost their home due to accumulated debts and started living in a shelter for people in vulnerable situations. Despite the difficulties, Joshua never lost hope. He was a brilliant student, especially passionate about science and technology. When he was introduced to a robotics program funded by the charity responsible for the prom, he found a new purpose. With basic materials and limited resources, he created projects that impressed his teachers and mentors. His dedication earned him a place as a young ambassador for the program, and that night, he was at the event to represent all the children who had benefited from the cause. The incident could have gone unnoticed in the grand scheme of the evening, but as the hours progressed, Eleanor's cutting comments continued. Her contempt for the boy seemed to grow with every sight of him in the crowd, and she made no effort to hide her feelings.
"Seriously, what kind of establishment allows this sort of thing? This should be an exclusive event, not a crochet. It's shameful,"
she said to her friend Margaret. Margaret, a kinder, more empathetic soul, frowned.
"Eleanor, maybe he has a reason for being here. You don't know his story."
Eleanor scoffed.
"Oh, please, what story could justify turning this event into a circus?"
The evening reached its climax with the long-awaited speech by the night's honoree. The host, a distinguished man in his 60s, took to the stage, tapping the microphone to silence the room.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here tonight. As you know, this ball is dedicated to supporting young talent and giving them the opportunities they deserve. Today, we are honored to present someone who embodies the true spirit of that cause.
The audience leaned forward, full of anticipation. Eleanor, slightly interested, sipped her champagne, her eyes scanning the crowd.
Our evening honoree is a young man who has overcome incredible challenges. Despite facing difficulties that would discourage many, he has shown resilience, kindness, and a determination to win. Please welcome Joshua Carter.
A murmur of applause spread through the room as the boy from before took to the stage, his small figure illuminated by the spotlights. The tray of appetizers had disappeared, replaced by a silent confidence as he approached the microphone. Eleanor's champagne glass froze in midair. Her mouth dropped open as she realized who he was. Joshua began to speak, his voice firm but charged with emotion.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you for being here tonight. This event means a lot to children like me. Just a few years ago, I was living in a shelter with my mother, wondering if we would ever have a chance of a better life. Thanks to the programs funded by this charity, I was able to attend school, receive tutoring, and even join a robotics club. It changed my life.
He paused, looking directly into the crowd, as if he wanted to reach every single person present.
My mother always taught me that, even in the most difficult situations, we should maintain our dignity and treat everyone with respect. That's something I carry with me every day. Today, I'm here to show that, with support and opportunity, any child can achieve their dreams.
The audience erupted in applause, but Eleanor felt as if the walls were closing in around her. She went over every word she had said to him, every scornful look, every cruel comment. Her face burned with shame. Joshua continued.
I've learned that sometimes all someone needs is a chance, and that's what this charity offers us. So thank you, from the bottom of my heart, for believing in children like me.
As he descended from the stage to a standing ovation, Eleanor's world seemed turned upside down. She had spent the evening judging him, dismissing him as insignificant, only to discover that he was the very essence of what the evening represented. Margaret leaned in, whispering,
Maybe now you will understand his story, Eleanor.
But Eleanor didn't answer. Instead, she raised her chin haughtily, refusing to acknowledge her mistake publicly. Her pride remained unshaken, even in the face of her internal shame. Some nearby guests, however, watched the whole thing with growing discomfort. Throughout the rest of the evening, a murmur of comments spread through the hall.
Did you see how Eleanor treated the honoree? What despicable behavior. She crossed the line this time.
Even as the music continued and laughter filled the room, Eleanor's reputation began to suffer. Some guests began to avoid her, their gazes full of disapproval. Others whispered about her insensitivity, lamenting how someone so privileged could be so cruel. Joshua, for his part, didn't seem to be fazed by Eleanor's lack of recognition. Surrounded by supporters and admirers, he left the event with his head held high, his message resonating in every corner of the hall. When Eleanor finally left the ball, the cool night air enveloped her, but it didn't bring the relief she had hoped for. The sparkling city skyline seemed distant, almost indifferent. She got into her car without exchanging goodbyes, ignoring the judgmental glances that followed her. Although she continued to frequent the circles of high society, from that night on, the aura of respect surrounding her name began to crumble. For many, Eleanor Whitmore was no longer just a wealthy socialite. She had become the example of what a lack of empathy and humility can do to a reputation. After the event, Eleanor Whitmore's life was never the same. In that moment, when the truth about Joshua Carter was revealed, something inside her broke. The vanity and superiority she had so carefully cultivated began to crumble, not just in front of others, but within herself. She tried to convince herself that the scandal would soon be forgotten, that the criticism would be short-lived, but Joshua's words echoed in her mind like a sound that wouldn't leave her in peace. The following days were filled with uncomfortable silence for Eleanor. She spent the first few days trying to ignore the gossip and whispers that followed her. At social gatherings, she noticed disapproving glances, and even her closest friends began to avoid conversation with her, as if searching for an excuse not to speak to her. Margaret's words still lingered in the air. Eleanor tried to maintain her impassive posture, but the shame gnawed at her defenses. That night, when Joshua's face appeared under the spotlight, it was a lesson she could never have imagined learning at a gala event. This story reminds us that every person we meet carries with them a unique story and unseen challenges. Before judging or despising someone, it is essential to practice empathy, compassion, and humility. We all have the ability to make a positive difference in someone's life, whether through words of encouragement, sincere support, or simply showing respect. May we always seek to see beyond appearances and recognize the potential and inherent value of every human being.